The following is a production of Fenix Media. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the company or its advertisers and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners. Welcome back, everybody, to You Bet Your Arse, the podcast where we cover the week's biggest sports bets. Now, we are not broadcasting live from the National Automobile Museum. And, if you noticed last week, we didn't even have a show because if you're watching your screen right now, Grady is sitting there in Costa Rica. No, that is not a green screen background behind him. That is the real deal. I have to say I'm a little jealous, but you know what? To kick things off, I'm Kristian Fenix, and with me is the Costa Rican king, the G-Man. How you doing, G-Man?
Costa Rican king. I definitely won't be saying that around here with the locals.
No. King of your own little balcony right there.
Correct. It is amazing weather here. We've been in Costa Rica on vacation this is, I think, our 8th day. We're celebrating my lady's 60th birthday party. We've been here before. It's been about 6 years, and a total of 26 people between friends and family that are here. And this is family week. And it's been an amazing time. But we're glad to be talking some sports. We got March Madness right around the corner, and it's already shaping up to be an amazing tournament even before these conference tournaments began. And I'm really, it's good to hear your voice, and I'm glad that we can talk some sports with all of our peeps.
Yeah, and with March Madness being right around the corner, you're going straight from Costa Rica to Las Vegas, where you're going to be watching the tournament. And so next week, that's where you're going to be broadcasting live from. And, it's a lot of exciting stuff. But, let's go ahead and kick things off the way we do normally, talking about our $2 tally, looking at not last week, but 2 weeks ago, where, you went 5-3. So continuing that winning percentage here in 2022, the overall winning percentage is 53.57%, which is better than most of the experts that are out there. How do you keep doing it, G-Man?
There's certainly a formula that you kind of learn over the years between the different sports, and they of course change. And I'm not sure I can put an exact finger on it, but all I can say is that there are, they're educated guesses, and it's a lot of fun, to kind of speculate and we basically crunch data and look at any given situation, and we'll be talking about some of those things, and then you just kind of roll the dice and see what happens and hope for the best.
Very cool. And if you've been following the $2 tally, where you place $2 on each of the bets that we lay out each week, you'd be up, $2, and not too bad considering that, the casinos take their cut. And with the 53% plus win percentage, that's a Costco hot dog and soda.
Yeah, there you go. And it's better to win a little bit of money than lose a little bit of money. But, it's again, the cost of entertainment, as we're going to talk about here in a few seconds, I'm sure, it's something that is a discretionary income, type of approach. But it sure is a lot of fun, especially when you win.
And that's the perfect segue into our disclaimers. A couple things we like to talk about each week. The first is never bet more than you're willing to lose. Gambling addiction is a real thing. And, we do this for entertainment purposes only. It's which is why we do the $2 tally. If you can lay down $25 in a week, maybe win it, maybe lose it. and it's not going to affect your house payment, your car payment, your kids' health insurance, go for it. But, if it is an issue, we strongly recommend seeking help.
Absolutely. There's definitely resources that you can check into. And if something happens to where you get into a money crunch, you can actually still participate in handicapping. You just don't make the bets, but you can still keep track, as we are here on the show. And then when you're able to do it again, you have all your data. You always want to keep track of your wins and losses and how much money you're spending, you know what I mean? And, hopefully not losing. But if it is, as long as it's something that's acceptable and you're having fun, it's not the easiest thing to do. It's like, for example, this morning, just, for 8 games, put about 3 hours, with a couple Bailey's coffees and transition to a couple red beers.
Nice. And then the other disclaimer that we like to give is talking about in play. When we give you our picks, they are up to date. In this case, midday Friday, typically Thursday, but because of the traveling, we switch things around a little bit. But with that being said, things can change right up to the moment of the game. So in play is a great way to hedge your bets, to make changes on the fly based on the half, based on the quarter, based on the period, if you're following hockey. And some of the mobile applications like the William Hill Sportsbook app are a great way to do that on the fly. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to miss an opportunity. You can do it right there at the tips of your fingertips.
That's right. And I've been checking the numbers here in Costa Rica. Of course, with William Hill, you have to be in the States, to be able to actually make wagers. If I really wanted to make some wagers, I could get it done. But yeah, that app is an amazing invention, and it sure has changed the face of sports betting. No doubt about it.
Well, very cool. So before we get into the picks for this week, let's talk a little bit about the NFL, just because it is, key for both of us. It's what we both got started on, and it is the sport that I know I follow the most. There's been some big movement and some big non-movement, if you will. The biggest probably being Aaron Rodgers staying with the Green Bay Packers. They gave him a huge contract that he really just could not pass up. And as a result, waiting in the wings, the Broncos were sitting there hoping to get him, but they didn't. So they went and got a little guy named Russell Wilson, who they've played in the Super Bowl before and may know him a little well.
Yeah, mentioning the first guy, Aaron, everybody's been, of course, it's been with him, as sometimes is, a little soap opera, during the season, with the vaccine and stuff like that, not saying that his personal choices are right or wrong. I'm just saying that it was a little bit of a drama, that was caused, and his team was without him, for that week, and they actually ended up losing a game. And, it didn't affect them. Of course, they had home field advantage. Not that really mattered against the 49ers because of that one blocked punt. But here's my take on Aaron Rodgers. I think that he ensured that he's not going to win another Super Bowl.
I agree. And I think what it may have come down to is, he really is locked in with Green Bay. Green Bay has to agree to release him. And, money speaks. He probably has maybe 2-3 seasons left in him. But I don't think he's poised to win another Super Bowl by staying with the Packers.
Well, the salary cap, the NFL just released, I think it was $208 million, per team. And this one player out of a roster of 53 accounts for 25% of that now.
Not only that, but they still got to pay Devontae Adams to keep him around.
Well, that's what my point is that he's taking so much of the percentage of the salary cap that he's really handicapped his team from fielding other players, because it's a team game. It's not an individual game. And as good as a quarterback is, that's something that was paramount to the success of Tom Brady, is because he took all kinds of pay cuts over the years. There's no doubt that he could have gotten more money, but he understood that if he's wanting to win Super Bowls, he's going to have to spread that around a little bit. Not just that, from a general manager standpoint, that makes it more difficult for the general manager. But also, I think that it could kind of, under the radar, create a little bit of animosity, from the other teammates, who also want to win a Super Bowl, and they also realize that if the guy was making $40 million a year, and there's an extra $10 million, sometimes that's the difference in being able to sign another player or two or three that could actually get you over the hump.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Brady, that his selflessness is what helped ensure that they won that Super Bowl, that they even got to that Super Bowl, that they got as far as they did last season. Rodgers doesn't have that, and it's definitely going to handicap him. But it'll be fun to see how it plays out, and how those frustrations may build, and he may be second guessing himself for not demanding that he be traded.
Yeah, right. And I don't. I personally, I don't want to. I don't. I'm just going to blow it off if I ever hear a soundbite of him saying that winning a Super Bowl is the most important thing to him, because he just proved that it's not.
Exactly. Now, what do you think about the Russell Wilson move to Denver, my Denver Broncos?
Yeah, of course. Judy was disappointed. He kind of sent out a tweet with the crying face when Aaron Rodgers let his intentions be known, and then he was all happy when Russell Wilson was signed. And I think, of course, it's a game changer for the Broncos. They put themselves right into the Super Bowl conversation. It's been since 2013 since Wilson has won the Super Bowl, which is that's a good little spread of time there. So there's certainly no guarantee, especially when you factor in, potential injuries that happen. You're going to be bringing in a new coach, which means a new system. And so you guys have a little bit of a growth curve to go through. But that being said, I think Brady last year proved that, hey, if veterans can come in, and if they have all of the players in place, it can certainly happen.
Well, not only that, but I think the Broncos are trying to recapture the magic of that they had when they brought in Peyton Manning. So you had this veteran quarterback. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, comes in and obviously performs very well, wins a Super Bowl with the Broncos. I think they want to do that with Wilson again. They do well with veteran quarterbacks and fairly new systems. And hopefully this kind of slows down that quarterback carousel that Denver's been dealing with over the last decade.
Yeah, and if you recall, I think that Peyton, at the point that he was at in his career, and Russell where he's at in his career, I think that Russell has a few more years than Peyton had when he came there. He was kind of definitely on the way down. Not that Peyton was still badass, obviously. But if you recall, I mean, that the defense was on fire. That year you had, younger Von Miller, and the other parts of that defense that were together. And again, they have a really good defense now. But I'm just saying that I think on the offensive side, if Denver could shore up against the running back, position, although the backs that are there have certainly been serviceable. If in the draft they could upgrade that. At the receiver position also, that they certainly would be considered. I'd put them in the top 10, for sure. It's hard to say top 5, and here's why. If you look at the AFC, specifically the AFC West, you got Mahomes, Carr, now Russell Wilson, and
Herbert.
I'm blanking. Herbert, yeah. So the Chargers, and so just your division, getting past that is going to be awesome if they're able to do it. And then you throw in the actual conference, itself, and then you look at Buffalo. They've got Josh Allen, so and other teams outside the AFC.
You got
AFC
the Ravens
West,
with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, so it's I think the road to the Super Bowl is a little bit tougher for him in the AFC than it was going to be in the NFC.
I agree. And then was there any other movement throughout the NFL that really caught your eye this week?
Truthfully, here where we are, and especially on vacation, I think there's just one TV in our complex. We have 3 different levels, but there's just one TV. And I think maybe a couple times, I've gotten on it. They don't have ESPN here; they have ESPN2. So there's a lot of soccer. So a lot of the news and stuff has been sparse, and it's been limited. So those are really the things, of course, that are the top news has been happening. At least in my head is Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. But if there's anything else that comes to mind with you, I'm probably aware of it, but it's just not coming to mind right now. So if you want me to comment on it, just let me know.
I mean, the only thing that really comes to mind as far as big movement is, and of course it sticks in the AFC West, Mike Williams is going to the Chargers. So that's a great wide receiver pickup.
Yeah, and as a Broncos fan, of course, that's not good news, to you because of what we just spoke of. The AFC West, much like the NFC West has been the last couple of years, including last year, those are probably the premier divisions in the league. And when anytime that one of your divisional rivals makes their team better, that's just going to be tougher for Russell Wilson.
Exactly. All right. Well, you're enjoying Costa Rica. Obviously, next week you're going to be in Vegas, so you'll be sort of entrenched in sports and sports news and all that. So, it'll be kind of a dichotomy between relaxed and down to business next week. But speaking of getting down to business, let's get into our first 4 matchups, talking NCAA basketball. Of course, we're right into the conference games right now, which lead into March Madness. And you've picked 4 games with top 25 teams in them. All look to be really good matchups. But our first one is Miami against Duke. Duke is currently ranked number 7, and you've got them at -9 by the hook. I mean, -9 in an NCAA basketball game is a huge number, but Duke looks really, really good. How did you get there?
Well, I have to admit that number caused me pause because, again, as you know, and we really try to look for bets, where you're actually getting points. Basketball is to me personally as a handicapper, it's a little bit tougher, than football, because the margin of victory, especially in the tournaments against the point spread, these guys do a really good job. And of course, in the tournament, every game with every team is their Super Bowl. It's their championship game. You don't want to be a one and done. So every team is fighting. So much like playoff games, and that's why it's a little bit tougher in regular season. Because people are managing their injuries. They're managing their energy during games. And truthfully, as a competitor, you really don't care if you win by 1 point or 10. But as a sports bettor, of course, when you're laying points, that's really, really important to you. And so this 9 points was a little bit apprehensive to do this. And so admittedly, I'm not going to bet on this before the game starts. I will be doing an in-play. But if I had to right now, I'll offer the rationale. So first, breaking down the numbers. So far in the season, and again, Duke's in a tough conference. The Hurricanes, I'd say not so tough. And so these guys, the Duke Blue Devils are averaging 80.6 a game, and then the Hurricanes are averaging 70.8 a game. So you can see where the handicappers got their number. I think it's right there. And so what I'm looking at is a couple of factors. The reason I laid these 9 points is, first of all, on the defensive side of the ball, you've got the Blue Devils that are actually averaging 66.4 a game for their opponents. And so that expands a little bit on that point spread. But I think the little caveat that made me do it is that this is Krzyzewski's last year. and his last game, his last home game, they lost. They lost significantly to North Carolina, their big rival. I think it was like 25 points or something like that.
Wow.
Subsequently, in this tournament, they just got through playing Syracuse, and they didn't cover the spread there. So, like, those things, kind of like instinctively, I would be taking the points. And this, again, is probably my, like, number 4, pick as far as risk factor. But I think that eventually the team should start taking these disappointments and start playing better. And so I just choosing between the two. I think this is just a good spot, especially if they are playing North Carolina in the championship game next. They better get their stuff together.
And not only that, but with where Duke is ranked at number 7, they want to win big with the seeding right around the corner, because the better they rank, the better their seeding. If they're up in the top 4, top 5, eventually that means they're playing the lower end teams through the tournament. So, they have every intention to try and win big.
Yep. I agreed. And their numbers are of course, respectable. They hit 48.9% from the floor. That has them ranked 10th in the country. So they have the offensive firepower. If they could limit their turnovers, they have a better free throw percentage than the Hurricanes do. And the Hurricanes looks like they force almost 14, a game. And, the Blue Devils are right around 10. Game. So if they can, keep around their average, I think that, they should be able to cover this.
All right. And that game is tonight at 6 p.m. So, as soon as this is released, you'll want to grab that. And then, as G-Man mentioned, in play for this one would probably be a really good way to go. Now, you mentioned North Carolina, which is our next team up on the docket. You've got Virginia Tech at North Carolina, -2 for North Carolina by the hook. That game is also tonight at 8:30. What I find interesting about this is looking at ESPN in the straight up win matchup predictor. ESPN actually has Virginia Tech as the favorite, 53.1%. I'm curious how they got there, and why it's such a glaring difference between, how well North Carolina's playing, especially, just beating Duke, compared to a Virginia Tech team that is, they're all right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought the same thing, because basically this bet here spins off of a pre-tournament future bet of who's going to win the ACC tournament. North Carolina, Duke was at -130, and North Carolina is at +550. So you get 5.5 times the amount of money that you risk on that future bet. Of course, it's gone by the wayside. But the reason that I love that bet was because of North Carolina's number 3 seeding. They actually got 2 buys before the quarterfinal. So they kind of got right into the quarterfinal without having to play a contest, which means that they're rested. And, they just got through smashing Duke, so I think I was shocked, first of all, that it was like only -2. So this is one of those ones where, sometimes I smell a rat, but sometimes, just like it happened in the NBA, where a couple of weeks ago, I was wondering why Dallas was only -3, and they covered the spread pretty easily. So, basically this right here was on the pre-tournament predisposition that I had. Is that that was redundant, huh?
A little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah. So basically on my disposition before the tournament started, thinking this 550, this is of course the first game. And so, based on that bet, they were going to get past Virginia Tech. I only have -2. So by the hook, if, they win by 2, you're a winner. But once again, based on your points, I would tread lightly, on this one. I'd put it, probably on about maybe a 2-unit play instead of like a 5-star play.
All right. Well, the next matchup is another big number that I'm very curious on how you get to. You've got Mississippi State headed to Tennessee against number 9 Tennessee. Mississippi State +8 by the hook. Tennessee is looking really good, especially as of late. Mississippi State, again, they're almost a 500 team, but you're thinking that they're going to stay within 8 points of Tennessee in this matchup to cover the spread.
Yeah, and again, this is one where in this tournament, the only way that the Mississippi State is probably going to make the tournament, March Madness, is if they win this tournament. So Tennessee is going to be in the tournament for sure. And so 8 points, again, knowing that the lines makers try to kind of inflate this a little bit with teams that they know are the public is probably going to lean towards as far as betting. I think this is one of those situations. You look at the Bulldogs, and they're forcing almost 14 turnovers a game, and they themselves also draw 17 fouls. They only give up a little bit under 32%, from 3-point land, which puts them 92nd, in the top 100 in all of college hoops in the country. And their points that they allow per game are 66.3. And so, I think that, based on the situation, these guys are certainly capable of playing some defense and keeping the game close. They're going to be trying to win because it's their only hope of playing in March Madness. And so March Madness has basically started for them right now. So, yeah, give me the 8 points, and hopefully, the Bulldogs are going to keep it close.
And it's interesting anytime that you pick sort of against the odds makers. Obviously, it's one of those chances where you have a chance to win bigger, but with enough research, it happens more often than not if you pick it correctly.
Absolutely.
All right. And so that game is also this evening at 5 p.m. And then finally in our NCAA basketball lineup, you've got LSU headed to Arkansas against the Razorbacks. LSU +3.5. Now that game is today at 1 p.m. I'm hoping to have this episode out by noon, so that gives you guys an hour lead time to get that bet in. This one is interesting because, again, ESPN on the matchup predictor has LSU winning. They've got Arkansas ranked at 15. I'm surprised that LSU isn't ranked in the top 25 at all based on their record. Is it a strength of schedule thing, or what? Why is LSU outside of that bubble?
Well, I don't think I could answer empirically or with 100% certainty. This game started actually with the LSU Tigers at +1. Now it's at 3.5 this morning. So I think this is again a reflection of the fact that, say, Arkansas, as everybody knows, that they were victorious against Auburn a few weeks ago. They're 24-7. So of course they have a nice schedule this year, but they've been struggling lately. Who was the last team that the Razorbacks? Okay, so when they played against Tennessee, they ended up going 23 out of 62 from the floor. That's only a percentage of 37.1. That's not the best shooting percentage from the floor. Arkansas, they did make 10 out of their 28 3-pointers at a 35.7 clip, which is pretty good. But, for the most part, they've been struggling. And again, I see an LSU team that haven't seen them play this year a couple times. They came really, really close. They went to overtime. I think it may have been a double overtime earlier in the year against Auburn. You got a strong SEC team, again, with strong history. Arkansas, again, Tennessee, they turned it over 14 times against Tennessee, their last outing. So, again, I think LSU, I think they're going to win the game.
I do too.
And if not, hopefully it's close, and I'm getting 3.5 points up from 1.
Well, very good. This is the weekend to start watching NCAA basketball. If you're like me and kind of wait until the postseason, because this is the lead in directly into March Madness, and this is where it gets really, really exciting. Now, moving on to the NBA, we've got 4 games that are all tomorrow. Now, the spreads haven't been released yet, but G-Man has his picks on who he thinks will at least cover the spread. Starting out with the first game, the Minnesota Timberwolves against the Miami Heat. That game tomorrow at 4 p.m. And you've got the Heat as covering. Obviously, they are a favored team. They're looking pretty good this season. Do you think it's going to be a low point spread or a higher point spread? And, how do you think that they're going to be far enough apart from the Timberwolves that they'll be able to cover that?
Well, this is, I think, an example of one of the things that we do. One of our segments is sports betting for dummies. And it's a little kind of pearl of wisdom that all of these games here that I picked in the NBA, after looking at the Friday and the Saturday matchups in the NBA, these all are teams and games that I'm picking where they have back-to-back games. So that's something, if you're looking for some NBA action or there's something on and you see it on the menu, for you to be able to pick the games, that's something that you kind of want to look for is do they have back-to-back games? So, I may have to, I just found out my battery was low. So we should be okay, though. I also have some battery packs we can tap into. But basically, Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, so you have back-to-back road games. So does Miami. I mean, they have 2 games in a row, but Miami has 2 games in a row at home. So it's one of those ones where I think the Timberwolves are going to be getting some points, but this is one where I'd be willing to lay whatever the sportsbook puts out there, because of the factor that these guys are going back-to-back road games and the Heat's going to be at home.
Interesting. Speaking of interesting, this next lineup, I'm really curious how you got here. Sacramento Kings headed to the Utah Jazz. You've got the Kings as covering the spread. That game tomorrow at 5 p.m. Kings are, they are very poor this season. The Jazz are looking really good. I mean, their records are almost flipped to wins and losses. How do you see the Kings covering any sort of spread against the Jazz?
Well, again, we're kind of going into this blind, but the basic premise and theme for all of this is that the Jazz in this situation are going to be playing back-to-back games.
Okay.
And so Sacramento is coming in, even though they're on the road. The Jazz has a road game, and then they're coming home. But that second game that they have is, especially with traveling, it's just tough. It's tough to do. And so in this situation, Kings are definitely going to be getting the points. We don't have to win the game. We just have to cover the spread.
That makes sense. All right, next up on the docket is sort of a best of the worst type matchup. You've got the Indiana Pacers headed to San Antonio against the Spurs. You've got the Pacers covering, and that game is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Again, 2 teams that aren't playing particularly well this season, but they're both playing equally poorly. How do you get to the Pacers covering?
Yep. So again, the Spurs are the team that has back-to-back games. They're both at home, but the first game that they play is against Utah. So one of the better teams in the league. Anytime that it happens, it's kind of like a competitor's litmus test. And if you're having a disappointing season, this is one that if you can get an upset under your belt, this definitely makes a team feel better about themselves. And so between those 2 back-to-back games with Utah, I think that they're going to be really, really in tune with the Jazz. And they are probably, I wouldn't say call it a letdown, but combined with the fact that it's their second game in a row, 2 days in a row, and it's the Indiana Pacers, I think that they'll kind of relax a little bit. And so that's really why I'm picking the Pacers.
Interesting. Yeah, especially for these last 2 games that we mentioned, that's where in-play really comes into effect. That
for sure,
if you're sitting there watching it and the game's just getting away from you, adjust with in-play. All right, and then the final game here on the NBA lineup is a game tomorrow, also at 4 p.m. Cleveland Cavaliers headed to Chicago against the Bulls. You've got the Bulls favored to cover the spread. This one just makes sense to me because the Bulls have been playing so well this season.
Yes, and again, maintaining the theme. This game right here, the Cavs and the Bulls are both playing back-to-back games, but the Bulls are at home and the Cavs are on the road. So that was the deciding factor there. Again, count on probably the Bulls are going to be the ones that are laying points, but it's just something that we don't prefer. But based on the fact that things are equal, with the two teams playing 2 games in a row, but the Cavs are the guys that are having to do it on the road, which has travel and and all that stuff, all that convenient stuff, inconvenient stuff. I mean.
Yeah. And I mean, this season you'd almost be dumb to bet against the Bulls just because they're looking just so good. And that does it for our picks of the week. Now, as we've been doing in our Sports Betting for Dummies segment, G-Man and I have been looking at the NHL. Both of us are novices in the game itself and obviously sports betting for it. And looking back at last week, we both lost. You've been going with the money line picks. I've been going with the puck line. And, it just goes to show that how close these NHL games can get, even if you think that somebody's going to be a runaway winner. So our tally at this point is you're down -2 points in our competition. I'm right there at 0. So, there's a chance to come back. Looking into this week, you picked the Los Angeles Kings as a -133 money line favorite over the San Jose Sharks. That game tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. How did you get to that bet? And, hopefully you win and you're able to earn a point on our competition here.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I'm wanting to do at this point is just get a win under my belt, 0 for 2, you're 1-1, by going on the puck line, which it's a pretty good strategy. I think I'm going to be spotty, on that. But, I'll certainly do that. But let's get a win under our belt. And so as I think this is what I've learned so far as a sports betting dummy in NHL. Is that the way that you handicap this, from what I've been taught by people that bet on the hockey consistently, is that the first thing you want to find out is who's the goalkeeper, who's going to be at the net. And so when I compared the two, the player for the Kings, who I picked, is this guy. Excuse me. I'm plugged in now. But we have to make sure that the door is closed to keep the bugs out because there are bugs here in Costa Rica.
And bugs that are about the size of your fist too, right?
Yeah, it's a fascinating study in wildlife.
Sure.
We have geckos running around, and it's pretty cool stuff. So anyway, this guy, his name is Calvin Peterson for the Kings. Opponents have tallied in his career 211 total goals, and he has and it averages like 2.73 goals a contest. And so he's been in a total of 80 games over the course of his NHL career. His save percentage, very respectable, 0.912. So basically every 10 shots, he blocks 9 of them. And overall record of 35, 33, and 7. And so he's gotten a start in 75 of those 80 games. And of course, 5 games, that means that they came off the bench. And that in his career, he's recorded 42 quality starts, and his rate is 0.56. And so he's got, experience-wise, he's got over 2,400 shots, against him, and 2,193 total saves. So on the other side of the ice, you got this guy named Zachary Salchenko. And now sometimes people, it's funny, sometimes if they were doing this analysis, you know what I mean? Some people would say, hey, I'm going to choose the San Jose Sharks because I like the Sharks. And this guy behind the goal, he sounds like a Ukrainian. And we all know that we're supporting the Ukrainians right now. I don't know if his name is a Ukrainian, but I'm just saying, as silly as it is, those are the type of methods. But so let's contrast the two. So this gentleman, He has a total of 7 games played in the NHL. And comparable up there, he still has a good save percentage of .908, but he only has 7 games. So when compared to the other one, he has only 3 quality starts. Opponents are averaging 3.5 goals a game versus 2.73. So every single one of these numbers, in contrast, say to pick the Kings. So that's my rationale right there. How about you? What are you doing?
And I still don't know enough to question any of your reasons or methods behind the pick. So we'll just move on to my pick, which is we've got the Capitals against the Vancouver Canucks. And I've got the Canucks at -1.5 on the puck line. I'm sticking with that puck line just because I always feel a little more comfortable than the money line in that. Both teams are fairly evenly matched. The experts all predict Vancouver to win, even though they've got a slightly worse record. But they are at home. They do have to win by 2 in order to cover. But, you look at all of the stats and the numbers. Aside from being almost on par for every single stat, the biggest one that jumps out to me is the shots and the percentage on goal. And so Vancouver, they take a few more shots, but their percentage is about 4% higher than that of the Washington Capitals. So, it's one of those things. Is that enough to get them 2 goals ahead, especially in a sport that it's hard to score even one? That was something I ran into with my loss last week. But, just going through, looking at the numbers, looking at, the games that were available to us, this is one where, I really wanted to find one that wasn't sort of a runaway big difference between the two. I wanted to find a matchup that was close and, see how I could do based on purely stats. And, the stat, again, that jumps out on me is that shot percentage. And so, that's how I ended up getting to where I'm at. Again, that game is tonight at 7:30 p.m. And I've got the Canucks -1.5. So fingers crossed I'll be able to get above the goose egg on our competition here. But, ideally we both win this week. We both lost last week, so why not?
Yeah, and if we both win this week, you'll still be, you'll get 2 points. So that'll be 2. You'll still be ahead of me.
Yeah, 2 to -1.
Since you've been doing the puck line, we may want to just stick with that. If I just pick money line and you pick the puck line, and then we compare the records and how going for scored by two goals or more, because they are 2 different bets. What's the financial payoff for if you cover the puck line?
Let's see. And of course, what I've got pulled up does not show it. So I will have to get back to you on that.
No worries. I can check it real quick as we're finishing up.
Yeah, so, and it is one of those things that, if you guys out there do enjoy betting on the NHL, feel free to comment, send us a message, let us know, sort of what stats, what sort of metrics you look at in order to bet, because, we want any sort of leg up that we can have because we're putting actual money on this. We're right there with you guys. It's not a whole lot of money that we're putting on there because we don't know it so well. But, even if I throw $2 down on, the Canucks at -1.5 and I end up losing those $2, so be it. But at least I'm learning. And so that's one of those things that, always watch those stats, always be learning. And, maybe by next season we'll become NHL betting pros.
So you're getting at -1.5 on the puck line, you're getting +230. So okay. That's good. And that's what's nice about that is just remember though, the reason that they do that is because it's more difficult to do, but it sure is fun. And if you could get a winning percentage on the puck line and always be getting plus money or, the maximum return that you can get, that this is going to be a good study.
Yeah. And it's been fun learning it and going through, what it takes in order to actually be an educated bettor, which is why we do the whole sports betting for dummies to begin with.
Yeah, and that reminds me. I think we were talking last week that we want to encourage everybody. If you like what we do, just give us a comment every once in a while. If we pick something and you pick something different, and we lost and you won, we don't mind you rubbing it in a little bit.
Yeah,
That's all part of the fun, right? Yeah.
Well, very good. I think this is one of our shortest episodes yet, but it was really mostly because I'm going through sun withdrawals, just seeing G-Man sitting there on the balcony with the palm trees in the background. And so I need to go out there and get a little vitamin D. But we will be back next week. G-Man will be live from Vegas. We are talking March Madness, so it's going to be a big show coming up. And, until then, we will see you guys all next week.
See ya.